The Space Race, 1955 to 1972. The space race was the push between the USSR and the United States for greater technological dominance during a time of great political tension, which led to the Apollo moon mission. During this time, the two greatest political powers, least affected by the war, the United States and the Soviet Union, fell into conflict. The end of World War II signified the beginnings of the Cold War. As the conflict grew greater, the Cold War emerged, and each side tried to scare the other with their superior military technological advances. The fear of nuclear warfare grew as people got more and more worried. This fear was present all throughout the space race. An event to be familiar with is the Cuban Missile Crisis, which really enhanced the people's fears. The Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the most heated periods of the Cold War, in which there was tension between the U.S. and the Soviet Union in 1962 over the presence of Soviet missile sites in Cuba. On October 4, 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik. This surprised most Americans, and they knew that space would soon become an extension of the world and its businesses. They did not want to lose that to communism. The United States' first satellite, Explorer 1, was designed by rocket scientist Wernher von Braun and launched in 1958. Also in 1958, President Eisenhower created NASA and the National Reconnaissance Office to help advance space exploration. The CIA, along with both the Air Force and the NRO, launched Corona, a program aimed at obtaining information on the Soviet Union and allies. In 1959, the Russians put the first space probe, Luna 2, on the moon. Yuri Gagarin became the first man to orbit Earth in the Vostok 1 in April of 1961. In response, the United States launches Project Mercury to put their own man in space, not into orbit like Gagarin. John F. Kennedy announced the U.S. would put a man on the moon before the decade came to an end. In February of 1962, John Glenn becomes the first American to orbit the Earth. Also, the U.S. created the foundations for Apollo. From 1961 to 1964, NASA sees a 500% increase. In 1967, a launch simulation accident kills 3 astronauts and set the Apollo mission back. In December of 1968, Apollo 8 becomes the first mission to ever orbit the moon. On July 16, 1969, Neil Armstrong, along with Edwin, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, set off on the Apollo 11 moon landing mission. By July 20th, Neil Armstrong becomes the first to walk the moon's surface. Because of this great success, America successfully beat the Soviet Union in the space race. So what was the significance of the space race? Never before had there been such an intense increase in science accomplishments. It created a new fear of interstellar nuclear warfare